Hi, in this video we will learn about another inference rule, Modus Ponens, how to apply it and how not to apply it. Hi, this is Logic Self-Taught with Dr. Phi. In this video we will take a look at our third rule, Modus Ponens. We will learn how to apply it, how not to apply it, what mistakes to watch out for. In a separate video we will do proofs with the rule. Modus Ponens allows us to use the information contained in a conditional, but you need to have something else. You need two propositions in order to apply the rule. You need to have the conditional standing on its own line, and you need to match the conditional with its antecedent. So you need to have the antecedent of the conditional also standing on its own line. Then and only then can you apply the Modus Ponens rule, and you will derive the consequent of the conditional that will then stand on its own line. Let's take a look at the rule in symbols. We have our derivation line conditional, if P then R, and we have the antecedent of that conditional P in line 9. Given these two propositions, we can, as it were, detach the consequent R. But it's very important. You need the antecedent on its own line. Here are some intuitive applications of the rule. If Abe is smart, he will leave town. Abe is smart, so Abe will leave town. If it rains, Jane will go to the movies or to the theater. It does rain, so Jane will go to the movies or to the theater. To apply Modus Ponens, we must have, again, the conditional on its own line, and the antecedent must be matched. In other words, there must be a proposition that matches the antecedent of the conditional, and that proposition must stand on its own line. And here we have these conditions fulfilled. We have the conditional, if B then C, we match the antecedent B, we can detach C. Again, we have a slightly more complex conditional, we match the antecedent, and we can detach the consequent. Here's a more complex case. We match the antecedent and we detach the consequent. The first two of the common errors I'm going to talk about have to do with what we have already stressed. Inference rules don't apply to proposition components. Here's an example of what you might be tempted to do. You have a conditional, if B then C, but you don't have the antecedent B on its own line. What you have is the antecedent buried inside a disjunction here. In this case, you can't apply Modus Ponens. What if we had the conditional, if B then C, and a conjunction, B and A? Could we now detach the consequent? And the answer is no. Again, the same principle applies. The antecedent must stand on its own line. Here it doesn't. It's just a conjunct. We can't apply Modus Ponens in this case. But given the latter two premises, we can construct a little proof to derive C. We know a rule, simplification, that allows us to derive a conjunct. And now that we derived B, we can match the antecedent and detach C by Modus Ponens. Here's another instance of a similar error. We have a conditional in line 1 and what looks like the antecedent in line 2. If you look carefully, you'll see that the conditional whose antecedent is matched in line 2 is actually a component of the proposition in line 1. And we can't apply inference rules to proposition components. The conditional to which we apply Modus Ponens must stand on its own line also. Some students, when given just a conditional, if B then C here, are tempted to do the following moves. What you get might look like you have an application of Modus Ponens, but look at this step number 2 here. Step number 2 cannot be justified by Modus Ponens. You cannot derive the antecedent of a conditional by Modus Ponens. The rule requires you to have two propositions. The conditional and a proposition that matches the antecedent of a conditional. But those propositions must be derived by from somewhere else, right? They have to be either your premises or have been already derived in the proof. Modus Ponens will not allow you to derive the antecedent of a conditional. This is important. Some students are tempted to think that, because simplification is such a great role, it basically allows us to take the first conjunct, the second conjunct, they sort of generalize this to Modus Ponens. What Modus Ponens allows us to do is take the consequent, take the antecedent. No, this is a completely different role, right? This is a completely different role. Modus Ponens allows you to detach the consequent, but only provided that you match the antecedent, only then. And the antecedent must be already available in your proof. This looks like it's okay. You have a conditional, you have the antecedent, and you derive the consequent. Look what the student has done. Let's look at this once again. They're given just one premise, if B then C. So what they do is basically add B as a premise. And this is not something that you can do. The premises are given to you in the arguments that you show to be valid. You cannot just add premises at will. If you do, you will show a different argument to be valid than the one that you're meant to show to be valid. That's the problem. This is Logic Self-Taught. It's exercise time. Do all the exercises until they feel like a breeze.